I'm going to do a short review here of APA, expectations and requirements. Depending on the school you're going to or the instructor, you may get some variations. Um, the best source is usually the Purdue OWL site. You can Google that, and it gives you pretty much all the different examples. The other thing about usually if you're like in a graduate program, there is an assumption that a student, already knows APA, but sometimes you find that's not the case. There's some basic things about, APA format, like on the papers, using Times Roman 12-point font, double space, 1-inch margins. Grammar, proper English is always a issue. Um, Another thing, depending on who the instructor might be for you, each sentence carrying itself independently. And I'll go over that in a little bit, but there's just basic grammar things like paragraphs. Sometimes we'll see a paragraph that's a page long. Generally, paragraphs are 3 or 4 sentences that cover one topic or one thought. The other thing, generally, first person is not used. Where, on an APA paper, you're doing some might call it like a book report. I mean, you're basically talking about or giving a report on the topic, whatever the topic might be. Sometimes there might be a case for an essay, depending on the assignment, to where you might use first person or interject your own opinions or viewpoints, but generally there's no first person use in APA papers. Um, APA papers also have, there's a basic parts of them, the introduction, which just introduces the topic, the body of the paper, which has the topic itself with headings, subheadings, different sections, parts of it. The conclusions, which also we often see conclusions that will have new information added to it. You don't add new information in a conclusion. You're summarizing what you already presented. And then there's the references. And then again, the OWL site is a great site to to look up all this. Here I got highlighted, depending on the paper. Short papers usually do not have the table of contents. You have the title page, an introduction, the body, the conclusion, references, the figures and tables. So on the long papers, major projects, you'd have the table of contents, figures and tables. Also, right up here, you would also have an abstract. So it just kind of depends, and your instructor should give you guidance on that, depending on what the case is. Again, the main part of the paper is the introduction paragraph. It is a short 3 to 5 sentence paragraph. It provides the who, what, when, where, and about the topic. It's pretty much that's a short. It can sometimes be 2 paragraphs, but generally it's 1. The body of the paper, we talk about the more detail on what you introduced. This could be 2 to 4 or more paragraphs depending on the length of the paper. And then you got the headings and the subheadings. So you talk about a topic, and there might be a subtopic or different parts of that topic. And I'll show you an example of that in a second here. Then the conclusion is usually a paragraph. It could be a couple, and it restates the introduction, what you did in the introduction and the body of your paper. And again, you don't introduce new material. What you are doing is you're reviewing what you already wrote. So that's the important part there. Okay, so here I got an example of so what I've taken here is a paragraph, and I've broken that. I just separated into individual sentences here, just as an example. So this example here is that the J. Robbins Company has been designing, manufacturing, and distributing footwear in Australia for over 100 years. The J. Robbins Company for the past 15 years. Now this part here could probably be reworded where it could probably be reworded for grammar purposes. But anyway, the J. Robbins Company for the past 15 years has concentrated its manufacturing expertise on medium-priced women's fashion and casual footwear. With this concentration, the company has recognized as the leading women's footwear company in Australia. Now, this sentence here has an issue. with this concentration. Now, the thing about sentences within a paragraph is each sentence should carry itself independently so you know what you're talking about. So in this case, when we say with this concentration, an instructor might highlight this and send it back to you with a question on the sidebar saying, what is this concentration? So that's just just a little bit as far as getting into grammar and making sure things are understandable. Some people may not be as nitpicky about it, but I mean, as far as technically, each one independently. With this dominance, the company has consolidated its manufacturing expertise at Belmore, Sydney, employing approximately 500 people and operating on a 2-shift basis 5 days a week. And then the last one, and then we got the last one here. So what we do here, we put it all together and back into the paragraph format. There's something missing with this whole paragraph here. There's no citation, there's no reference on where we're getting this information from. So on this next on this next slide here, I got an example of a paragraph. Each sentence has a citation. Now, again, depending on the school you're going to or the instructor, APA calls for citation. Where do you get the information from? So you need to think of it this way: is whatever, if you write a sentence, where did you get that from? Is it you just came up with it because you saw something somewhere, or is it from an actual journal, article, textbook, whatever the case? So depending on the instructor, some may want you to do every sentence as a reference, or they may want you, hey, if all the information came from the same source, then in one paragraph, then you can just have the reference at the end. So it just depends on your instructor's preference, but the APA calls for every sentence pretty much. Another thing, using things like acronyms. Okay, right here we got effective method used to assess the non-profit organization, an assessment tool called Elements of Effectively Managed Organization, EEMO. So now in the next sentence, we don't say it out again, we just abbreviate it. So that would be another example there. When you get to the references, the other, you got way they're supposed to be formatted. So now let me get into the format here real quick. All right. So you get down to references. Okay, what you do, you highlight. You go up here. You got the paragraph tab right here. You have to do that. And see this right here, hanging. This is what makes that indent. So if we put none on there, because usually that's how it's going to be. When you first type it up, this is how it shows up. And then you're going to go in there and just put that hanging indent in there. And that's where that comes from, just like that. The other thing you should notice is zeros. Okay, sometimes the fonts on Word documents will have 0.6 or something like that, so you need to make sure you got zeros. And then the same thing on the rest of the document. So you highlight your document, go in here. You need to make sure you have the zeros. And again, I say and you do double space. You also check on there so you don't get extra space in between paragraphs. Because if you didn't check that little box there, you'd have a little extra space in there, like between the heading and the paragraph. Okay, and then I talked earlier about headings. So there's things called headings. So you got you got your main topic heading here, or level 1 they call it. And then underneath that, you're going to talk about a couple of 3 different items. So like here, we got the heading to the left there. So those would be like second level headings, okay? And then there's more, and then you start a new part of the paper, a new topic within the paper, and then you have that, subtopics in there like that. So, all right, so that's pretty much how that works. So anyway, that was just try to keep that short. Okay, we're under 10 minutes here, but just a short review. I hope this helps a little bit, and with that, I'm going to let everybody go. So there you go, short review on APA. or at least, like I say, you may get some instructors saying, do it this way or that way, and it just depends on what they're looking for. So, but anyway, this might help you a little bit.